Welcome, everybody. Thank you for coming. We are going to talk about something that's on a lot of people's minds and that some of you may have gotten a little sneak peek about because Dr. Morgan let a little email go out and he was talking about an upcoming program that we're going to be doing here at Balance Health called A Body in Balance. And it really is going to be pretty incredible. We've been working on it over the last few months as a clinic and all the staff together. And it's going to pull together all the various components that really do belong in a metabolic reset. And so it's not about a weight loss program. We're not calling it that because that's not what it is. It's really to help everyone with their metabolism and with their whole body health. And that really starts with this. It starts with our brain. It starts with our mind, which we will delineate. The brain and the mind, a lot of times we think about them as being the same thing, but they're not. The mind is really not, I mean, if you've ever pictured in your mind, does anybody know what a mind looks like? Usually the first thing, we usually think of a brain though, but it's different. It's not the same thing. So when we think about the mind, brain, gut, body connection, we are really thinking about 4 separate things. We're not just thinking about 3. So we'll kind of talk about that too. But that is a connection that a lot of people have been thinking about lately. And I'll go to the next slide here. And I kind of alluded to this, introducing A Body in Balance, Balance Health's Metabolic Reset Program. Tonight, what we're going to focus on is kind of the foundation of that. So as a group, we talked about the fact that before we can really get into a lot of the other pieces and start working on things like nutrition and start working on things like what's your exercise plan and your fitness and your movement plan going to look like? What are some of the supplements that you might involve or integrate? There's a lot of different elements that are going to go into this, but if we don't have that mindset foundation first, all of it is for naught, because you could be doing all the right things and have all the right pieces in place, but if your mindset and if your also brain are not in harmony or aligned, then it just throws everything off, and we'll learn about how that happens. But this is a conversation that we feel like is missing a lot of the time in different programs, and that's the reason we really want to focus in on it. It's just not the calories in, calories out old way of thinking anymore, and I think a lot of us know that, but it's how everything's interconnected, and that definitely includes stress. Probably everybody here knows that. The number one issue with our health, the biggest thing that can affect our brain health is high levels of stress and high levels of anxiety. And so my goal tonight is to leave you with a new perspective. I want you guys to really think about that sustainable weight management is going to be starting with your mindset. That if it's going to be sustainable, you need to know about the gut-brain connection, your mindset, and stress regulation. Okay? All right, so why, we already kind of said why mindset first, but when most people start a diet or a health program, they focus on usually what? Food rules. What am I going to go buy from the grocery store? What foods do I need to avoid? What foods can I eat? How much? What's allowed? What's not allowed? Again, how much exercise? All of that, right? A list of eat this, not that. But here at Balance Health, we believe that the starting point really needs to be mindset, because your beliefs and your emotions around food drive is going to affect your behavior more than any lists or any rules will do. And think about it. How many of us have said, like, I'll start Monday, or I'll start next week, or I'll start New Year's, the first New Year's Day. These are mindset statements, and they're not hunger cues. So that's important, because when you think about physiological hunger and emotional desires or cravings, they're completely different. A lot of us look at life through a lens. All of us look at life through a lens. It's the way that we make choices. And it has a lot to do in researching for this part. One of the articles I looked at talked about how through the womb and then during development and even through breastfeeding versus formula feeding, how that changes your microbiome, which then changes the signals that are sent to your brain in adulthood. So it starts as before you're even born, some of this stuff starts to happen and we don't even think about it. So a simple list of rules of this, eat this, don't eat this, overcome something that powerful that's been set since the time you were in the womb? No, but if we go to the root, to the mindset and to the brain, then we can overcome that. Okay. So has anybody ever made food choices out of stress? Anybody went to go have a glass of something or a bite of something? Thank you for being honest.
I did it today.
Oh, see? And sometimes we say, I deserved it, right? I had such a tough day, I deserve that. Or fill in the blank. What was your reason?
It was a very stressful day.
She said it was a very stressful day. So that's, a lot of us have done that. Okay, so you see the diagram, you see the emotions, habits. So our emotions are going to directly affect our habits. Cravings are also going to be derived from the brain, but our beliefs, that's really important too. What do we believe about food? Is it a source of fuel or is it a source of comfort? Is it something that, are there bad foods and good foods? Which now more and more people are learning not to label foods as good and bad because that's not healthy. But most of us grew up with that's bad and that's good. So we don't want to do that. But to your point, I've done that too. I deserve it. I've been good all week. I'll go ahead and have this Cold Stone. All right. So let's move on to emotional eating. All right, so we see how we just talked about this. I deserve this. I'll start tomorrow. One bite won't hurt. So you can see how these emotions, because where do thoughts come from? Where do emotions come from? From thoughts, right? Your thoughts are going to drive your emotions. If you're feeling something, even though it can be very insidious and it feels like, no, I just feel sad. And I know this because I've tried this with my daughter before. What were you just thinking? Nothing. I'm not thinking anything. I just feel sad. We never just feel there's always thoughts behind it. Many times they're subconscious thoughts. We're not actually, aware of them, but they're thoughts, regurgitating thoughts, old thoughts and old patterns that are causing us to feel a certain way. So those thoughts, I'll start tomorrow, one bite won't hurt, I deserve, there's some emotion behind those thoughts. And the heart, you see the little heart in there? You see the brain and then there's the heart down below? That represents our emotions like stress, boredom, loneliness, or even sometimes celebration. Like, it's been great, we've had a great week, let's all go out and have cake or whatever. Those emotions are represented by the little heart can override our true hunger and then lead us to eat for reasons other than true hunger. So one of the first steps that we try to teach in the program is to simply pause and ask, am I physically hungry or am I trying to soothe an emotion? That awareness can change everything. And we'll talk a little later about some of the ways that we can really help with our mental awareness. One of the things that we really, really encourage people to try here is neurofeedback, because neurofeedback helps with that awareness, gives you that space between your direct reaction and emotion and a little space to pause. And it makes it much easier to pause and say, wait a minute, before I respond, what is the thought behind that? What was I just thinking? What happened just before that? But when you learn to distinguish between the two, it's powerful. It gives back the choice to you because we want to have the choice with us. And we don't want these automatic habits taking over. And that's really what's happening in 99% of the time is automatic habits and robotic actions are taking place with all of us. So can anybody share an example of when they realized, like later on, that was not real hunger, that was stress, or that was just a habit? Does anybody have Anybody want to be brave and share? Yes.
Well, I love chocolate, and so I really love the little Hershey nugget bars.
Yeah, closer to you.
Little. And so I found that it's kind of a habit after supper. I've got it in my cupboard right by my sink. I go and I get 3 little chocolates out there, and it's not because I'm hungry. It's not really even because I'm craving chocolate. It's just a habit of what I have started doing, and so that's kind of my go-to thing is
Thank you for sharing.
Chocolates.
Yep, and that's a great example of I got real close to you so the mic could pick you up for anyone who listens later. Yes, that's a great example of a habit. It's kind of, you've got it set up. Now, if you were to replace that with something else, that poof, there goes that habit because it's no longer automatically available to you, right?
You'll move the chocolates.
Yep, or put something else in there. Yes. That's not chocolate, but you can find something else that you like that you can put in there, or change it to a completely different behavior that doesn't have to do with eating at all.
Right.
Okay. So the question is, are they always deliberate, conscious thoughts? Where do these thoughts come from? And we just answered that. No, they're not like, I want to go get a chocolate out of this, I want to ruin the pattern, this whole thing that I've been doing for 3 weeks. No, it's just an automatic thing. A lot of times there's emotion behind it. Okay. Again, this is just another picture of emotional drivers in eating. So there's that difference between emotional eating and physical hunger. So some of the things that can help us to decide is emotional hunger usually comes on suddenly. All of a sudden, you just feel like, I've got to have this thing. It's what we all always call otherwise a craving. I just need it right now. And that's what those quick late night drives to fast food or, those things, a lot of Uber Eats are making a lot of money off of these right now. When people are, I just got to have it, and Uber will bring it right to you. You crave specific comfort foods because if you're truly very hungry, you wouldn't be like, it has to be a Hershey's chocolate. No, you'd be like, oh, there's some quinoa. I'll go ahead and have that. So, emotional hunger when it persists despite fullness. So you've eaten and you've had the chocolate and you want more and more and more, even though you're full. And then finally, afterwards, you feel like crap. You feel so guilty because you're like, I blew it. You wouldn't feel like that if you had just eaten to fuel yourself for physical hungry. So on the other side, I really don't like the fact that there's a hamburger looks like from McDonald's on there. Not be my choice to put up there, but it is food, right? Not my favorite thing to put, but I wanted to keep with just the whole theme, so the cartoons are going to be very similar. But you see on the physical hunger side, it's a gradual developing, and that's our natural body's physiological development of hunger. It doesn't come on like that. You start to become hungry slowly as your energy stores deplete slowly, and you start to need to refuel slowly, not suddenly. And you're open to different options. You don't have to have one thing. When you're full, you stop. When it's really hunger, you've attained your goal of satiety or fullness, and you stop. And then finally, you don't feel guilty. You're like, I ate. We're supposed to eat. And we're going to talk a little bit about normal and abnormal. There's so many ordered and disordered ways of eating right now that we need to distinguish between those two. But some of the things, those little arrows are going to help, and we have a flow chart on the next slide. But have any of you tried journaling around food if, in fact, it's an issue for you? Has anyone ever tried to do a food journal? That can be helpful, similar to when you're having trouble with budgeting your money and you just start a ledger of every single time you spend it. You're like, oh my goodness, are you kidding me? A same thing with a food journal. You start just journaling, but not just writing down everything you eat, but what was I feeling? What happened around that time? What did it feel like? How much did I eat? How did I feel afterwards? How did I feel before? And then taking those mindful pauses that I just talked about can be elongated with things like neurofeedback or meditation or breathing exercises, things like that. And then this nice little flow chart is going to be when you join our program, our metabolic fitness program, our Body and Balance. This will be part of the booklet that you'll get. You'll have this little flow chart, so you'll be able to see it a lot better than you can probably see it right now. But at the top it says, am I hungry? And it's really nice because then you have, no, well, then you're done. Yes, then you say, okay, do I have actual growling in my stomach? Is my energy low? And am I irritable? If yes, you should probably eat. If no, okay, do I need food or am I craving comfort? And then it goes down, and I'm not going to read the whole thing to you, but at the end of it, it gives you some more examples of trying to help you to slow down, chew thoroughly, have smaller bites, check in the middle of your meal, stop when you're comfortably full, things like that. So that flow chart's going to be very helpful. Here's the spectrum I was just talking about. So we have eating behaviors, and there's a spectrum of healthy and unhealthy. And so it's important to understand, especially when we start to talk about things like intermittent fasting, because we really do like intermittent fasting here at Balance Health, and we like to incorporate it at least part of it. We're not saying that you have to intermittent fast every single day, and we're not saying that you have to intermittent fast at all, but we really would like you to at least try to do it at least one day a week. And so fasting is sometimes a trigger for people that have eating disorders. So you have to be careful around that if there's a history of an eating disorder. So there's eating disorders like anorexia nervosa, bulimia, binge eating, other eating disorders. There's disordered eating. So that's a difference from anorexia and bulimia to disordered eating. Maybe you're not anorexic, maybe you're not bulimic, but it's disordered. It's what we just talked about. You're eating to comfort yourself. You're compulsively eating. You have these firm dietary rules. You will not eat this. You will not. I never have that. It's not allowed. Get it away from me. I won't even look at it. That's not healthy. If you look at intuitive eating, you eat when you're hungry. You have a positive body image. You'll eat a variety of healthy foods. There is a typo there. And at the very last one says does not regulate emotions. So that means someone who is an intuitive eater doesn't use eating to regulate their emotions. Okay? That's what that means. All right, so let's move to the closed loop behavioral insights. So here more research that I was doing. It's really cool to see that there's sensor-based eating interventions confirmed behavioral change in this study. And if anybody wants a list of the resources that I used to put this together, it'd be fascinating for you guys to read some of the research studies that I was looking at when I was putting this together. But they use all types of different sensing to help target people's behavior. So our brain is wired to seek reward. So we want to seek rewards. We want that dopamine hit. Food's one of the quickest rewards. It's going to give you that hit really quick. So changing habits isn't just about willpower. It can't just be about willpower. It's about retraining the pathways that are between the gut, the brain, and the body. And that's, again, why we put mindset as step one and foundation in our program. We're rewiring the way that we think about food. But this study was really, really something. You'd have to read it because it's very lengthy. But it was just really interesting. It was done somewhere in Asia, I can't remember where. But they were talking about the different cohorts of people that they took and changed the sensing. And so we use our 5 senses, and the sensory inputs directly changed the way that they then related to food. And so you think about how would that work if we took that and applied that to our lives. If we changed some of the environmental sensory input around us, that we could completely change our behaviors too, setting up different cues, like in your example. All right. Now we can start to talk about the gut-brain axis. Let's move into that connection that I know that you guys want to hear about the gut. Your gut and your brain are like in this constant conversation. Brain and gut. There is a vagus nerve that most of us have heard about. It's called that Latin for the wandering nerve because it's so long. It starts here, and it starts there at the base, and it goes all the way down through your gut. And it stimulates your parasympathetic nervous system. So it stimulates the rest and digest, the vagus nerve does. So it's really, really important for the vagus nerve to communicate from the gut to the brain. But this is a bidirectional signaling. So the brain is talking to the gut and the gut is talking to the brain. And there are immune messengers in the form of hormones. One of the most popular hormones that people have heard about is GLP-1 because it's on a lot of medications that are on the market right now. That's just one of the hormones that your gut makes that talks to your brain and tells it, okay, you're done. You need to be done eating. Most of us have that hormone. We create it naturally, and it just kind of whispers, okay, time to stop eating. But for some people, it's just they've tuned it out. And so what the medication does is makes it kind of like, hey, cut it out. It just brings that voice up and says, stop, until you can't ignore it and you stop. But we'll talk just a little bit later about there's ways to naturally do that. Here at Balance Health, if there is an absolute need or somebody really feels the need to have medical support in their journey, there's no rule against it. But we've found that there are natural ways that we can reproduce the effects of medications like the GLP-1s and have great success. And we've had really good success here at the clinic without using them. Okay, so we have the signals that travel through the vagus nerve, through hormones like one that I just talked about. We'll talk about ghrelin and leptin and raptin in just a minute. But there's even metabolites that are made from your gut after you eat. Metabolites that come off from the gut, again, go back to the brain. So when your gut is healthy, when you have a healthy microbiome and a nice flora, you're sending messages to your brain that give you healthy signals when you're full and healthy signals when you're hungry. But when your gut is inflamed, so many of us have inflammation in our gut, or if it's disturbed or irritated, those messages get scrambled. And so you're not getting those healthy messages that you're full or that you're hungry. And that can simply be a result of inflammation in your gut. And we've overlooked that for a long time. We really need to start looking at that. And so we are. And that ends up looking like metabolic dysfunction, poor satiety, not feeling full when you should, and cravings, basically. Okay, this is just a picture, again, of the gut-brain axis I just told you about. Bidirectional. It's not just the brain talking to the gut. It's the gut talking back to the brain. Now we've come to know the gut as the second brain. A lot of people have heard that term too, because there are so many neurotransmitters that are made in the gut. There's also so many nerve endings and neurons, actual neurons in the gut, that it is just this network that is hyper intelligent. It's constantly communicating. And as I said before, from the womb and from babyhood is communicating with your brain. Does it mean we can't change those messages? No, but we need to understand that the messages are there in the first place. And then again, at the bottom, you can see those microbiome metabolites. I think that we're done with that one. So some of the key hormones and gut signals that you should know about are GLP-1, PYY, and CCK. You don't have to memorize those or know exactly what they are, but just know that those are all created in your gut. Those are all created in your intestines, and they are let off by your intestines after a meal, and they signal satiety. They signal that you're full, that you've had enough, and they do that via the vagus nerve. Ghrelin, on the other hand, in the middle, is a hunger hormone, and that rises before a meal, and it tells you that you need to eat. That stimulates your appetite. And it also stimulates the reward pathways when you do eat. So it's a healthy hormone, and ghrelin is actually made in the stomach. That comes from your stomach. Leptin has a role in long-term fuel regulation and central signaling. So when we have people that are obese, a lot of times they have leptin resistance. You've heard of insulin resistance, but obesity can also cause leptin resistance, and that makes it really hard for people to stay hungry or to stay full. Sorry, they don't feel full and they are constantly feeling hungry. And that's, your appetite control is disrupted, and it's almost inevitable that you're going to gain weight and keep weight on when these hormones are out of whack. All right. So the role of the microbiome, you've got the SCFAs. Those are the short chain fatty acids that come from the gut, and they create energy and signal the brain to influence appetite, mood, metabolism. And if you feed your microbiome healthy things like fiber and give it nutrient-dense and nutrient-rich foods, your bacteria is going to reward you. Your bacteria is going to be very happy with you, and it's going to give you metabolites from those foods that create balance. So you give that healthy food to your gut, and your gut says, thank you. And the metabolites are like, healthy, yes, give me more of that. However, if you feed your gut processed foods and you feed it sugar, the signals shift towards inflammation, and they're going to give you cravings. And so, yes, what you feed your gut is literally what your gut feeds back to your brain. So if you want inflammation in your brain, feed your gut inflammation. You can guarantee the same thing will happen here that you feed here. And you can see that pathway very clearly. There are certain acetate, butyrate, propionate. Those travel to the liver, so that's why the liver is there. And they affect your metabolism. And they travel to the brain, and that's where they affect the appetite signals. So those metabolites go to the brain and to the liver. So it's really important that we realize that our gut is affecting everything. It's not just staying here. And gut health, again, is the foundation of weight management, just not calories, it's the messages. And that's why, because we don't want these messages to be scrambling, we want to manage stress. Stress management is essential, whether it's breathing, whether it's mindfulness, movement, it's not optional. It's absolutely essential to manage stress. So the new kid on the block is Raptin. So maybe most of you have heard of leptin and you've heard of ghrelin, or maybe not. But those are kind of the more popular hormones that people have heard of that signal whether you're hungry, and they're based in the gut. One of them is actually the leptin is based in the fat, in your fatty tissue. But Raptin it's made in the hypothalamus. It's actually made in the brain. And it's a newer hormone that's been discovered in recent years, and it has to do with sleep. So when you are having a bad night of sleep, your ghrelin rises, your leptin drops, and we now know Raptin, that is a sleep-induced hormone, is going to fall when you have a bad night of sleep. So, and the result is that you have increased hunger, increased cravings, especially for high-calorie foods. So has that ever happened to anybody, like you've had a really bad night's sleep, and then the next day you crave sugar or carbs right away in the morning? It has happened to me. It feels like, for some reason, I want carbs, and I want sugary food when I haven't slept well. Well, now we know that there's a reason for that, and it is our friend Raptin. It's the fall of Raptin. Okay, so we talked a little bit about GLP-1 and how it is really, really popular, and we are finding that people have a lot of success with GLP-1 medications, but there's ways that we can mimic the effects of GLP-1 medications without using them. And that's important because for some people, they're not tolerated very well, side effects. For others, they're very expensive, and so their access is limited because of that. And for other people, they just don't want to use a medication to try and lose weight. They want to do it the natural way. And so there are ways that you can mimic it. And one of the ways is by intermittent fasting. Another thing is by eating high fiber and gut nourishing food. and reducing stress. Once again, good old stress reduction. Some of the things that you can do as far as prebiotics and probiotics are really important in there too when you're talking about the gut and GLP-1s. Some of the things that you can do for fiber are like psyllium husk. That's a great fiber that you can use for approximating the GLP-1. What happens when you do have fiber is the fiber expands in your stomach, and so it creates that feeling of fullness. The same thing that the GLP-1 does. The GLP-1 makes you feel full. Well, so does fiber. And it also slows gastric emptying so that you stay fuller longer. You don't get hungry as quickly. Same thing that these medications do, you can reproduce with fiber, especially certain types of fiber. And then also curcumin or turmeric, the active ingredient in turmeric, and berberine are really good supplements as well. doTERRA has a really good supplement that's called MetaPower, and it is a blend of essential oils that helps with satiety. So there are 5 essential oils, and you can either do the oil or a gel cap of them. When you swallow that helps with your satiety. So you just, for me, if I'm feeling irritable or craving, because I like to fast. So in the middle of my fast, if I start feeling a little bit irritable or I want to eat, I'll just swallow a couple of those capsules and I'm feeling good. So that's actually the gift for anyone that brought a guest today is 30 capsules of the doTERRA's MetaPower gel caps. So you'll get to try those if you brought a guest. And then also omega-3 fatty acids are going to help reduce inflammation. So we're still talking about ways that, we're still talking about ways that we can, simulate a GLP-1. Now we can go to the next page since I already show it. So stress pathways and metabolic impact. We already know stress, it's kind of like a broken record, and it's going to sound like one because it has to until we really get it and do something about it, that if we are not managing our stress, it's going to show up in our metabolism. It's going to show up in our body. And the HPA axis is basically your hypothalamus, your pituitary, and then your adrenals. Well, what comes out of your adrenals? Cortisol. That is the hormone of stress. Cortisol does a good job when it needs to be there, but if it's perpetually just being stimulated over and over and over, you have an excess of cortisol, which is going to end up giving you that spare tire. It's going to end up giving you that weight that you just can't get off, and also lots of inflammation. So you're here in the slide, it says that it disrupts your hunger and satiety, your gut integrity, and the weight regulation. Cannot say enough about gut integrity. We're talking about the gut microbiome. You really need a really healthy microbiome to keep that integrity, because our gut layer, the cell layer lining of the gut is only 1 cell layer thick. So think of 1 cell layer like being less than the width of a hair. That's the lining of your gut. And so if the integrity of that is disrupted, anything can get through there. And then your body sees that as a foreign body and then tries to attack it. And that's when we see all these autoimmune issues, allergies, and sensitivities to foods, which, what happened? I could eat that. I had no problem with it. All of a sudden, now I can't eat this, right? It's not all of a sudden, it's your gut lining is disrupted, because we have to really take care of it because it's so delicate, only that 1 cell layer thick. But the things that we just talked about, the fiber, the pre and probiotic and postbiotics, those are going to help nourish, and also nutrient dense foods. I know this other word looks like, it's just like, what is that word? But that's actually, talk about special subspecialty, subacute specialty. Psychoneuroimmunology is actually a field that you can go into as a physician, and it blends everything, psychology, neurology, and immunology. So that field is growing, and because there is a need for specialists who understand the interplay between the way you think, and see how they split it up, psychoneuro, mind, brain, they're not the same. So neuro is the brain, psycho is the mind. And they know that there is an interplay between the way you think, what your brain actually does electrically with those nerve impulses, and then your immune system's response to that and how it all interplays with your gut. And then we say it in our body. Just another picture of that. When we're stressed, you see the cortisol. That cortisol is going to make you feel hungrier, but then when you eat, it's just going to keep packing on more weight that you can't get rid of. And you have, even though you keep eating, you're not full. And it just doesn't seem to make any sense. And people come in and say it all the time. It's like, I don't understand. I'm eating and I still feel hungry. Well, it has to do with an altered gut barrier and also altered messaging from the gut to the brain. Next, just another picture of when you sleep. If you are not sleeping well, ghrelin goes up, leptin and raptin go down, and you wake up and you have this hunger attack. And when we try to introduce intermittent fasting to people, a lot of the time say, there is no way I can skip breakfast. I have to eat breakfast. I'm starving first thing in the morning. Usually that indicates that it's not been a restful night's sleep, or that the previous night there's probably been a lot of processed food or carbs in that last meal instead of healthy fats, protein, and that there's disruption in the integrity of the gut. So we need to help the person sleep so that they can have a normal, healthy appetite. All right, so if we're going to maintain our weight loss, we can't be going like this. Can't do the yo-yo. Another reason why we don't discourage, but we encourage natural weight loss. And we really encourage shifting your metabolism rather than relying on a medication, because what can happen is you can get that rebound. You can get plateaus, and then where you feel like, okay, what happened? It was working and then it stopped. When you're doing things naturally, your body should continue on that natural path and progression forward. And also you don't have this rebound where you lose and then you gain it right back. One of the hardest things about managing your weight is keeping it off. If you ask anybody who's lost a significant amount of weight, it seems like losing it's the easy part. But if you can keep it off, then you've really won the battle. Well, your body has fat cell memory. Those fat cells remember what size they were, and they really want to get back there. They kind of miss. It's kind of like, I miss my old outfits. I want to wear those again. And they just naturally want to get back to that same size. So if you can adapt, and we can help adapt hormones and your metabolism, it can help keep you at that goal weight. Because when you have your hormones and your metabolism are maladaptive, it pushes you back to your previous unhealthy weight. And that's why we integrate the mindset, the nutrition, the gut health, stress management, and sleep. It's about creating a new normal, not just a temporary fix. We want to create a whole new normal. So you see those fiber-rich whole foods. Don't forget about those. Okay, integrating this, we want to tie it together. The mindset is going to set the stage for sustainable change. Our mindset, the way we think about food. Is it something that is a soother? Is it something that is trying to ease some emotional wound, something from our childhood? A lot of times it could be something from our childhood we don't even remember or know about consciously. Again, which is why things like the things that I keep mentioning help, because you can reach back and heal wounds that are from long, long ago without dredging them back up, by just calming that nervous system and allowing those things to process. So when we understand the gut-brain axis, we can regulate hunger and regulate satiety. We need to understand those stress and sleep that modulate hormones. And that is basically why Balanced Health's approach is very different. We're not just looking at one piece, and we're not looking at one piece at a time. We're integrating the whole system. So everything that's listed here is essential for a metabolic reset. There's not just one piece. So your next steps, we would love for you to start with us. We have this system that we're going to be launching, and this is just kind of the ground introduction tease, if you will, to walk you through what's going to come: mindset coaching, nutrition, exercise, supplements, hormones, stress, and sleep support. Again, not about quick fixes. It's restoring your body to what it was designed to do, what your body is made to do. And we'd love to have you take the next step with us. So that is your invitation to join us as we begin our journey with A Body in Balance, our metabolic reset program.